Welcome to our beautiful First Star Logistics Studios. It's time for In the Trenches with Dave Lapham, and special guest today, the legendary Rob Dibble, one of the nasty boys. And when I say that term, nasty boy, what comes to mind, stud?
Well, I just think successful tenure with the Reds, and we did what we wanted to accomplish for one season. I like a lot of my teammates, and I'm sure when you played, you wanted to win the Super Bowl every year. We wanted to win the World Series every year. And when it doesn't happen, it's kind of a disappointment. And so, winning in 1990 was amazing. I wish we could have done it a couple of more times. We had amazing fans, great organization, great minor league system back then. So when I hear nasty boys, I don't really think about myself as much as I think of how much fun we had and how amazing our run was.
It was truly amazing. There's no doubt. But I'm going to take you in the Wayback Machine. This is going to be Rob Dibble. This is your life a little bit.
All right.
I'm going to take you all the way back to your high school days. You're a graduate of St. Thomas School in Southington, or I should say in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
No, you were right the first time. It's Southington. I was born in Bridgeport, but we were living in another town because my dad was a radio guy, and my dad was working in Hartford. So we were living in Southington, where I went to St. Thomas Junior High and then Southington High.
So when you were in high school and back in the day, was it all baseball all the time, or were you a multi-sport guy? What was Rob Dibble's early stages of his athletic career like?
No, I was a multi-sport guy. I was all-state in soccer. I actually had more college offers to play soccer than baseball.
Really?
Played Pop Warner football. Here's what's crazy, all right? So I had two uncles that played minor league baseball with the Yankees and in the 50s and 60s, and they never made it to the major leagues because of football injuries. So my parents were kind of anti-football, yet I played soccer, basketball, baseball, and Pop Warner football 16 to 18-year-old, which was, and I know you know this, and a lot of other people may not know this, it was way more violent and aggressive than regular organized high school football, especially back in the 70s and 80s. So, I was taking some good beatings as a tight end quarterback in Pop Warner and then playing all those other sports. But everything really got me in shape to play baseball. And baseball, once I got to my senior year, college scouts and pro scouts started coming around. My path where I was probably going to go in the military kind of veered towards athletics and baseball.
So you played quarterback and tight end in football.
Yep.
What positions you play in soccer? What positions you play in basketball?
Oh, I was a forward and a forward in basketball too. Very fast as a kid, 6'3.5", 6'4", about 180 pounds. Ran a 6'4", 60 at a tryout for the Reds, and I got drafted by the Cardinals out of high school as an outfielder. So, I mean, but when you're in high school, everybody, especially in Connecticut, if you're good enough, you're going to be, a little bit above the other kids. And so, everybody was like, well, yeah, you could be a star. As you get into the minor leagues for a little bit, you realize pitching was a better decision for me than being a hitter, because you could really go down the wrong path if you're not a really good hitter. Look at Trevor Hoffman. I just talked to Trevor about 2 weeks ago. He was a shortstop in our organization, hitting about 200. And, they finally put him on the mound like he did in high school, through in the low to mid 90s. And they're like, yeah, maybe pitching is where you should probably focus on. And now he's in the Hall of Fame. So you never know what direction your career is going to take. So when I went to college, I focused on pitching more than I did hitting, and the rest is kind of history.
So in the 1983 amateur draft, the Reds take you in the first round. I mean, when that happened, what went through your mind? I mean, were you like just jacked out of your mind, or what?
No, because, I had been drafted. I went to college for 6 months. I didn't really take to college, and I gave up my eligibility. That was a whole long story that I don't want to go down that road, but I had to actually write a letter to Peter Ueberroth, the commissioner, basically give up my 3 years of college eligibility to go through the draft again. And that's when the Reds drafted me. So it was more relief than probably, hey, I was drafted in the first round. I just wanted to get my pro career started. I was 19 years old. I thought, well, first round, I got a little bit of money. I could put that in the bank. But now I want to concentrate on playing baseball. And when I went to Billings, I got to tell you, I was at 6'4", one of the shortest pitchers the Reds drafted that year. They had 6'7", 6'6", 6'8" guys, and from like Brigham Young and all over the country, University of Buffalo. It was just crazy. And so it was, if you didn't throw like in the mid 90s and you were 6'4", 6'5", back in 1983, 84, 85, they probably didn't draft you.
Unbelievable.
I know.
Well, a couple of career highlights here. The immaculate inning that you had, 5-3 win over the San Diego Padres. You were at one of 94 pitchers in Major League history to accomplish the 9-pitch, 3-strikeout inning in that baseball game. What was that like when you mowed him down like that inning?
Honestly, I can't even think back that far now, other than Norm, myself, Randy, back when Rob Murphy was on the team, and Frank Williams. We were more geared towards just do your job and pass it on to the next guy, kind of like being a relay team. And so for me, getting 3 outs, 4 outs, 5 outs, and then either getting pinch hit for or coming out of the game, again, if you did a good job, you did your job that day, and now you get in the dugout or you go in the clubhouse and ice, and you root for your teammates to win the game. So, I rarely, and I'll tell you a quick story about that, why I was never really focused on me anymore. My rookie year in '88, I came up. We were getting our butts kicked in Philly, and I came in, and I think I pitched 2 innings in relief. And mostly at that point, I wasn't a setup guy. I wasn't a closer. I was more of the, 6, 7, 8 guy to get the ball to the setup guys to get it to John Franco. And I get on the bus and I'm all happy and stuff. And we probably lost by 5 runs. And Ron Oster cornered me in the back. And he's like, listen, when we lose, we all lose. And don't think about your individual accolades until maybe in your hotel room. But right now, you should be pissed off that we lost, and get your butt on the bus, and we'll go back to the hotel, maybe have a drink and think about it and decompress. So that moment in '88 to the end of my career, I never really cared whether I got a save. As long as the team won, I won. When we lost, nobody was more pissed off than me. So if it wasn't for Ron Oster, who kind of steered me in the right direction as far as being a team guy and what the Reds were all about. I mean, remember, I spent 11 years in the Reds organization, the minor leagues for 4.5 years, and then 6.5 years in the big league. So for me, I lived Cincinnati the way they did things, the no facial hair, the short hair, the wearing your pants a certain way. So people that didn't grow up in that situation might not appreciate when Ron Oster gave me that talk in the back of the bus, but it's stuck with me to this day.
Unbelievable. You record your 500th career strikeout in 368 innings, fewer than anybody at the time. Now, Craig Kimbrell has since, passed that. But what about that dominance? 500 strikeouts in 368 innings. You were bringing it, my man.
Well, I mean, the one thing is a lot of people kind of label me as a headhunter or a little erratic on the mound. I always had great command. I grew up with 2 older brothers that were really good athletes. And I was always throwing a tennis ball off the roof of the house. I was always throwing a tennis ball against the chimney, and we had a little pitch on the chimney, and I throw it on that and go back and catch it. And then I'm one of 6 kids, so we had a garage door where you had the middle section with the little shingles, and I kind of made a little mark, which my dad was really ticked about, in the middle, and I used to just pound that with a tennis ball all day, all night. And, when I was in the big leagues, I could hit any spot and visualize getting a ground ball to Barry or getting a ground ball to Ron Oster or Mariano Duncan. I mean, that was my game. My game was, I'm either going to make you hit my pitch or you're going to swing and miss my pitch. And so the strikeouts, yes, they're great that you strike people out. But it's very taxing. It ultimately led to my shoulder breaking down and shortening my career. So I wish I would have been more focused on a 5-pitch inning instead of a 15 or 20 pitch 2 strikeout inning. It probably would have furthered my career. But those kind of records happen, like I said, when you're doing your job and you're concentrating on getting out there, getting ahead. I mean, now I'm big into statistics. I just got certified in the whole Rapsodo thing with the spin and the gyro rates and all that stuff.
Right.
And that's great. But at the end of the day, you still got to get ahead of the hitter. And if you get ahead with strike one, you're going to get 7 out of 10 outs. You get ahead 0-2, you're going to get 9 out of 10 outs. That's the kind of stuff that I was always a percentage guy. And if you look back, I'm more proud about this percentage than the strikeouts. I always believed if I could get guys out 8 out of 10 times, I'll stay in the big leagues. And my career batting average against me is 198.
Really?
Well, that is probably the one statistic more than the strikeouts or the not, less than hits per innings pitched and all the other stuff. It's the getting ahead, getting guys out of there, doing my job, and then then you look back and you're like, hey, my percentages worked, and so my philosophy kind of worked.
Yeah, your career ERA is 2.98. I mean, under 3 your ERA, but I didn't realize the career batting average against you, $198. Jeez, that's serious, man. All right, so obviously you're uber competitive, and like you said, Ron Oster, you guys had the conversation. Team loses, you're pissed off about it. You got a legendary temper. I mean, one of my great visions of Rob Dibble is throwing that sucker 400 feet to center field when you let that thing rip. How did you come to grips with focusing and channeling, that competitive fire, that temper in the right way, when you're on the mound?
Sometimes I didn't. Throwing the bat against the backstop, I regret the heck out of that. Throwing the ball in the stands, I will, regret that to the day I die. I mean, I never should have lost it that bad. And this from football, you're always in pain. And my shoulder pain was, probably a 12 on a scale from 1 to 10 constantly. It was, whether I was getting a cortisone shot or whether I was taking some kind of, painkiller, it was just a constant. I couldn't hold a glass of water. It would sit there and shake because it hurt so bad. And so that game, and I remember it like it was yesterday, it was against the Cubs. I probably threw 25, 30 pitches in the inning, was struggling to finish the game. And when Hal flipped me the ball, I just really was so upset by the pain in my arm, not even winning the game. I was satisfied with the win. I hated me and I hated my shoulder and I just wanted it to come apart. And I fired it towards center field. So really, if someone says, well, you were frustrated or angry, I really wasn't. I was in so much shoulder pain that until really they diagnosed me with a ruptured labrum and then a torn rotator cuff later on in my career. But I was pitching probably from 88, 89 with a torn labrum that just steadily deteriorated until the point where they had to go in there and take actually the whole thing out.
Unbelievable, man. That you got a significant pain tolerance, no question about that. So who is your biggest influence in your baseball career? I mean, is there anybody you can point to that, man, this guy really helped me point me in a direction that was real positive at the proper time?
Well, my father, like I said earlier, my dad was a newsman. He never played a sport. He was doing news. And to give you an idea of his background, he grew up in Connecticut, grew up with Bob Crane from Hogan's Heroes. And they were doing news together and radio, 50s, 60s. And then Bob Crane was like, listen, I'm going to go to California. He wanted my dad to actually go with him. My dad had a big family. He was always my coach from 8 years old till I was 15. And the reason he was such a big influence was because he taught me the little nuances of baseball. Don't let the middle of the batting order beat you. Work ahead when you're pitching. When you're playing shortstop, center field, catching, you're there to help your teammates. You're there. And so even though, and I have AAU teams now that I coach and I have batting cage here in Connecticut, I'm big on catcher, second base, shortstop, center field. You got to have that diamond defensively to really create a foundation behind your pitching staff. So for me, my dad was always about that. He knew all the little positions and how you had to work hard at everyone to, because he never thought I would get more than maybe a college scholarship. I think that was maybe in the back of his mind. But I always played up. I was 10 years old. I played in the 12-year-old league with my brother. When I was 12, I was on the 13, 14, 15-year-old teams. And it never dawned on me. And it's crazy because now, coaching, it's 46 feet to 50 to 55 to 60. When I played, it was 46 to 60 feet, 6 inches. So there was no in between. It was just when I was 12, I went from 12 to 13. I was on 46-foot mound, and I from the plate, and then it was 60 feet, and never thought about it. Never. Right. I think the best influence for me was my dad. Just was like, put me out there. If I failed, I failed. But he just constantly put me in positions to succeed. And I think my whole career, all of my coaches knew I was talented and knew I could handle it. And I think that's the beauty of coaching. You have to have people that understand you may be the best player, but sometimes you're in the wrong position. And my dad did a great job of always putting me in a position where I would succeed.
Your dad, Walt Dibble, was a longtime radio news director. He achieved at a high level in the broadcast world. Did he influence your decision to get into television and radio when you were done playing? Was there any influence by your dad in that regard, or was it other influences?
Well, there's two things. I was a season ticket holder of the Hartford Whalers, right? And so I moved back to Connecticut when my career was in the final hours. And my dad wanted me to do talk show stuff. This is the mid 90s. And I wanted to be, honestly, because my whole life's been wrapped around music and sports. And I wanted to really be a DJ. I loved watching the DJs do what they did. People may remember Brian Douglas from his days in Cincinnati. We're really good friends. Love him to death. And I love what they do. I respect, being a jock on air, being able to take a radio interview in the break and turn it around and put it on the air in the next segment. So I never really wanted to do what I'm doing now, but my dad knew in the mid 90s it was going to blow up, that sports talk would blow up. I wish he had lived long enough to see that, the satellite radio and I did 7 years on Sirius XM. But he knew it was going to blow up. So he actually sent me to a guy that let me DJ for a while, but it was Chris Berman really that had me on ESPN radio when they first started out. They were doing with Keith Oberman and Dan Patrick and all those guys. They were doing like 14 hours of programming on weekends. And they would bring me in to talk some off-season trades and free agency stuff, and I loved it. I would sit around for 10 hours to do 5 minutes, and I was just like, this is really cool. This if I could make a profession out of this, it would be, because at the same time I was studying to take the state police exam in Connecticut. So I was all set at 31 years old. I figured, because I'm always thinking down the road. And I was thinking, okay, I got a full pension coming from baseball because I had accrued enough average salary to where it all fit in perfectly at the time. And I was like, well, if I do 20 years as a cop, and all my friends were cops and firemen, my brother was a fireman for 30 years, I'll get another pension. And so I'll double dip. I'll have my baseball pension, I'll have a police pension. And then so it kind of just worked out. I got a job immediately with Fox Sports TV.
Yep.
After 8 one-year contracts in the major leagues. You'll laugh at this. It was my first long-term contract. I got a 2-year deal. So I was like, yes, I finally got 2 years back to back. And then I got fired after three months because they grew from 11 million homes to 55 million homes. And the bosses came in. They were like, yeah, this guy doesn't have enough talent. He's doesn't have enough tenure in the business. We got to go in a different direction. But I was able to try to make a comeback, realize that I couldn't play baseball anymore. And then I just settled on doing radio and television full time. I'm probably in my 23rd, 24th year doing it.
Yeah, that's awesome. You've achieved at a high level in 2 separate careers. I mean, that's not a whole lot of people can say that.
Dave Lapham here, and every day I am grateful for my experience to have played professional football. As a player, I realize self-motivation, leadership, and appreciating your teammates are key. At First Star Logistics, you can use those same attributes to create the life you want for you and your family. Build your future by working hard like I did. You'll see results both on and off the field. Call First Star Logistics today and be part of our winning team.
So I always like to ask pitchers this question. I remember talking to Pete Rose about, what pitcher was the toughest guy for you to match up against. And he named a pitcher. I can't even remember who he said. It was a name that didn't even register with me. He goes, that dude hid the ball from me. I couldn't find the baseball till it was like halfway on top of me. He said it was just my height at the plate, his height on the mound, whatever it
I
was.
think it was Randy Jones from the Padres. Did he bring up Randy Jones?
He did mention him. He mentioned another dude though. Randy Jones. I remember the lefty, but there was another guy that it was like, wow, that's crazy. Who was the toughest guy, the toughest out for you? I mean, who was it at the plate that you thought, man, this sucker, no matter what I throw, he seems to be all over it.
Well, obviously the guys like Tony Gwynn.
Right.
You know, Tony Gwynn was a good contact guy, very hard to strike out. I was hugely successful over the big power guys. I would have loved the launch angle. The Jack Clarks, the Joe Carters, the Darryl Strawberries. Like Straw, I think, is 0 for 10 with 6 strikeouts. So, yeah, I did love those guys. But Tony Gwynn or Marquise Grissom or all the contact guys gave me fits. I hated them because they could make contact the other way with my 95-mile-an-hour fastball. If I tried to throw a slider down and in on Tony, he would just pull it down the right field line. So, to me, I enjoyed those challenges more because the power guys, I was supposed to get out. It was power on power. And, yeah, I lost a few of those battles. I lost a couple with Bonilla. I lost a couple with Barry Bonds and, guys like that because they're going to catch up eventually and it's going to go. Mark Whitten, he caught up to a 2.0 95-mile-an-hour fastball and went 450 feet. So for me, the question was more, can I get Andre Dawson to hit a ground ball to Barry? So can I hit the 95 on the corner and get him? So, I was a big pitch to contact guy. To me, I visualized it's going to be there. He's going to hit it. It's going to go there and everything else is going to happen. So the little contact dudes, I mean, Jose Lind, a guy like that drove me nuts. Anybody that could hit the ball the other way against me was going to kill me.
Huh. That's really interesting. So the 1990 World Series, obviously, hell of a baseball team, great players on that team. Maybe this question's one of those guys, but who's the best player that you either played with or played against? When you sit back and say, man, that dude, he was a cut above everybody. Is there anybody, or maybe even more than one?
There's many. There's many. I mean, obviously Eric Davis and Barry Larkin, Paul O'Neill, guys that I played with. So many of the guys I played with. I was so blessed to play with. Even my catchers like Joe Oliver and Jeff Reed were great catchers. Bo Diaz was a great catcher. Really helped me with my career. But so many other players, I don't want to really leave a lot of my teammates out because, everybody was just better at doing what they were supposed to do on teams. Eric was like, he's always going to be my brother. He's always going to be family to me. Barry was another team leader. Tom Browning was another leader. Tom is one of the most amazing guys. People may not know this. I still teach the way he warmed up and did his bullpens.
Really?
He was such a perfectionist, and he would hit like that spot 5 times, that spot 5 times, that spot 5 times. Whether he threw 85 or 95 didn't matter. He was amazing at doing his job. Danny Jackson was amazing. Rijo was amazing. So, but on other teams that I played against, I think I added this up one time. I played against over 35 Hall of Famers. Some of them were beyond amazing to me. Eddie Murray was amazing to me. Playing against guys like that, being able to play against Gary Carter, Andre Dawson, you didn't want to make a mistake because Hawk would hit it 500 feet, so, there's so many guys. I think being blessed enough to come up, I wish I could have come up in 87 or 86, but, being able to face a Mike Schmidt, the meathead guy, Rob Dibble said stupid stuff like, God, I wish I could have faced Mike Schmidt in his prime when I was throwing 98 and he was hitting all the, and it got misconstrued because that's not what I meant. I wish I could have faced Babe Ruth. A lot of guys, I dream of things like that because I would like to see if I could get Babe Ruth out. I'd like to see if I get Hank Aaron out. I loved any matchup like that of somebody that was that special. Listen, Barry Bonds was amazing. I don't care what you think of him or what people say. He was a nightmare to face, an absolute nightmare. There's just so many special guys that I faced in my career, but watching like Eric Davis and watch Eric just kind of, comfortably do that and then get ready and launch balls and have such quick hands. I still love watching him to this day. Watching my mistake go 400 feet and watch Eric run down and smack his leg and catch it. You know, you're blessed to see stuff like that. So for me, I loved watching the game as much as playing the game, and being able to play with so many of those. I mean, Sabo at third. Nobody was more fearless than Chris Sabo. Chris would sit there in BP with guys just rifling shots, and he's just boom, boom, boom. You know, and I know he played hockey at Michigan,
Right.
but I mean, there's you have to be fearless to play the corner positions in the major leagues, especially on turf. Like,
Right.
you know, the funniest things that used to happen that nobody would ever know about, but like Pete or Lou or anybody else when we were on AstroTurf, you know, the pitchers, we always thought we were good athletes. So we would try to come in the infield basically to kind of get a little intestinal fortitude for pitching and think we could, you know, shag balls off the bat of Eric or Sabo or Paul O'Neill, and they would rip a shot and nearly take your face off, and you'd be like, oh my God, yeah. And then Lou would be like, get the hell in the outfield. And you're like, you're right, Skip, I'm going to the wall. So, yeah, I mean, when you're stupid and you're young at 25, 30, and you think, you know, I'm indestructible, you really appreciate how talented these big leaguers are. And then even watching them today, I mean, you know, whether it's Baez on the Cubs or Lindor or some of these guys, they make it look easy, but I know you know this, it's not.
Right.
It's not. It's 10,000 hours of practice. It's so many balls that have hit you off the face or whatever, till you get to the point in your brain where you're like, it doesn't faze me. That's what I loved about baseball. No matter how hard I threw, I don't think there was one guy, Dave, that was scared of me. I don't think there was one guy that was intimidated by my BS throwing it to the backstop or whatever. None of those guys cared. They would get right in there, and they were fearless, and I respect and appreciate that.
So baseball, a lot of people are saying, you know, baseball is becoming home run or strikeout. How much do you think the game has changed? And do you think that the game today is easier to pitch in this era than other eras?
I would say no. I mean, you know, with guys looking to try to square up your fastball constantly, and now pitchers are actually making their job easier for hitting home runs. You know, my philosophy was I'm going to give you less off-speed stuff, and I don't think a lot of people understand this. So at the lower levels that I'm coaching, these kids are amazing. They are hitting off machines that throw 100 miles an hour. They're using wood bats. They get a lot more out of their practice than we did. Like I said, I've got a Rapsodo machine. I've got a Hit Tracks machine in my batting cage, and it's all to make my kids better.
Right.
It's all to make them better and focus on playing baseball. So I think they're going to be great when they get to the big leagues. Now, I think it's difficult to pitch now because they're pampering you so much. That's a hindrance. You know, when I pitched 100 innings a year, my arm didn't hurt.
Yep.
When I went back to like 60, my arm was killing me. I didn't get enough work. I was never as sharp mentally. That doesn't help you. So, you know, the pitchers today, I think, are being hurt because some people think that it's protecting you from Tommy John or shoulder injuries. It's not. Guys are getting hurt just as quickly as they did when I played. The guys that should be pitching coaches in the big leagues, like Leo Mazzoni, 18 years in the big leagues, guy had 3 Tommy John surgeries.
Wow.
3, okay? Because his guys threw every day. Now, I'm not talking about breaking balls and change-ups and stuff. You need the blood flow. It helps to heal your body, just simple things like that. So a lot of these pitchers where they're like, we're not going to let this guy throw too many innings. You know, I know, you know, preparing for this today, on average, guys threw about 73 innings last year. 73 innings because they had 60 games.
Yeah.
I think they're going to be fine. They're going to be fine. You know, stop telling them they're going to be injured, because I think that's the mind is the toughest thing to overcome for some of these guys. If you just let them do their things and throw and get themselves in shape, they're going to be fine. But if you're like, oh my God, the guy's got a sore shoulder, you know, everybody pitches with a sore shoulder. Everybody pitches with a bad elbow. It's now, if it's painful so bad where you can't like get loose and throw, yeah, then you need an MRI. Then you need somebody to look at you. But for the most part, you know, pitching hasn't changed much. Guys are still doing stuff against nature. You know, you could do all the Rapsodo and all the video you want, but at the end of the day, They haven't made any strides in medicine to protect you from getting injured. The human body is still going to break down and deteriorate. Everybody's different.
Yeah, no question about that, Rob. 2020 Reds got hot at the right time, make the playoffs. Then, unfortunately, they don't score a run in the playoffs and get knocked out of the playoffs. What are your expectations for the 2021 Reds?
I think they're going to be fine. I think anybody can win that division. I don't like that Bauer, Iglesias, Bradley, and DeScalfani are all gone. Somebody's going to have to pick up that slack, but they have a lot of great young arms. Very pumped for my man Sal Romano. He's from Southington, Connecticut. He's on that team. Big, strong kid. And hopefully they throw him a lot. But yeah, you know what? I know the Cardinals did an awful lot. I know the Cubs, they had some subtractions. Schwarber's gone and Lester's gone, but they brought Arrieta back in there. The only two teams I really don't think are going to be in it are probably the Pirates right now, and maybe the Brewers will be a little bit more than 500. The Brewers, I don't love their pitching staff. Some of these teams don't want to re-sign these great guys. I know the Reds couldn't afford Bauer, but I'm not in there, so I don't know why you got rid of Iglesias. I thought the kid had a great arm, but they know more than I do. To me, you can never have enough closers. We cover the Yankees here in Connecticut and the Red Sox and the Mets, and they've got 3-4 closers in all their bullpens.
Right.
The Mets right now, I like the Mets bullpen, one of the best in baseball. They got 3 closers in their bullpen. You look at, they got Betances, they got Familia, and you got Diaz. So when you got that many arms, somebody's going to get the last 9 outs. That's what you're really shooting for.
So a big tradition in Cincinnati, opening day. Any memories opening day?
I loved Marge. I love the circus, love the elephants and stuff, because there were days when we played so badly. We used to joke about putting a tent over the stadium because we were so bad. She really got the fans in there. They opening day with the whole parade. And then the animals and stuff like that. To me, that's Cincinnati. Cincinnati should always have the first game in Major League Baseball.
Final question. You had the famous scuffle with Lou Piniella. How are you guys these days?
We're great. He mentions me a couple times in his book.
Yeah,
love him forever. And this, Dave. There's a lot of coaches that have very similar personalities to players, and so they're going to butt heads. We both hated to lose more than we love to win. And it was this one snippet in time. The next day, we were the best of friends. He came out, threw me a couple of fake body blows, and it was over. So anytime I see him, it's a good time. He's good people and he's family.
that's great. Well, I'll tell you what, Rob Dibble, you are a Reds legend, and you got a lot of fans still here in Cincinnati. You've had a brilliant second career. Congratulations to you, and hope everything's going exceedingly well for you and your family. Crazy times, man.
It is.
COVID-19, really crazy, but appreciate it. Thanks for carving time. I know you're busy carving time for us, and it was more than enjoyable, my man. Thanks very much.
Anytime, Dave. Take care.